Hello everyone, welcome back to the course of Malnutrition and Community Health. We have already discussed with all the theory topics in this particular course under the STRIDE scheme. Today we will be mainly talking about your practical number 1, which deals with anthropometry. So in anthropometry, the main aim of this practical is basically divided in three parts. The first one being determination of weight in young infants, second one being determination or measurement of height in infants, and the third one being calculating the anthropometric ratio, that is BMI. So like I said in a previous course, we have already talked about various topics such as different nutritional deficiency diseases, which include kwashiorkor, marasmus, vitamin A deficiency. We have also talked about fluorosis, zinc deficiency, iron deficiency anemia, protein energy malnutrition in detail. Other than this, we have also discussed the various government schemes and the programs which are associated for the betterment of the community health with regards to such malnutrition problems. Also, we have discussed the theory part of anthropometry in detail. So, in today's topic, we will be mainly trying to understand how to determine height, weight and BMI in children. Right, so after watching this part of the video, we will try to understand how weight is basically determined. We will be mainly talking about why is measuring of weight important and what are the techniques used to measure weight in children. So, like you all know, anthropometry is a word which is derived from two other words, mainly anthropos, which means man, and metron, which means measurement. So, anthropometry basically deals with measurement of composition or features associated with the humans. So, you can say it is a branch of anthropology which involves quantitative measurements. So, you are going to quantitate the height, that is, you are going to basically measure the height in meters, centimeters accordingly. And in the same way, you are also going to measure the weight as well. Other than this, head circumference can be measured, bone density can also be measured. So, depending on what parameter, hemoglobin can be measured, what parameter you are considering, the measurements or anthropometric metric methods will change. So, there are a number of them, like there are biochemical tests, there are deficiency tests associated with anthropometric measurements. But in case of malnutrition or in children, the most common or single most universally portable applicable method, you can say, comes under the anthropometry. So, what are we trying to assess in this particular case is size, proportion and composition of the human body using inexpensive techniques, non-invasive techniques. These techniques should be universally applicable, meaning, for example, whenever we are talking about the BMI, the normal range of BMI is standardized by the World Health Organization throughout the world. So, everybody is going to follow the same chart wherever we go. Also, we have to make sure that the techniques are very cheap or inexpensive as such, because in certain rural areas, or you can say Adivasi areas, the development or the techniques are not very highly developed, maybe due to electricity problems or due to lack of facilities as such. These techniques should be quite inexpensive and simple to perform. So, anthropometric techniques, as you all know, can be used to measure both your undernutrition as well as overnutrition. Undernutrition will be mainly including if the person is found undernourished, then one will obviously try to improve the diet, and in overnutrition, what we try to do is reduce the amount of nutrients which are going to be consumed. So, the measured values basically reflect the current nutritional status, and they cannot basically differentiate between acute and chronic changes. Now, see, the disease may be, for example, if it is a chronic disease, the chronic disease may be persisting in the child for more than a year or 2 years or so. So, your anthropometric measurements will actually not help you understand if this change, if the disease was actually acute before, then due to persistence of the disease for a very long time, it got converted into a chronic state. It will only tell you about what is the status of the child today, and on that basis you have to provide instantaneous or strategies so that the health status of that community can basically be improved. Right. So what are the parameters which are going to affect your anthropometry? There are mainly two parameters, or you can say these parameters are divided on the basis of age. So there are going to be two types of parameters. First parameters are going to be those who are dependent on the age of the child. Second parameter is going to be age independent factors. So whenever we are talking about age dependent factors, see a child from the first one is going to be weight, second one is going to be height. Now you all are familiar with the fact that weight and height are related to each other. Also, initially the child whenever is born or the infant is born, the weight should be of a certain category. Otherwise, the child needs to be provided with proper amount of food. And this weight and height obviously depends upon the age. As the age increases, height and weight will also increase. If height and weight increment is not in proportion with the age, then what will happen? Growth retardation will basically take place. That is why it is a age dependent factor. Other than this, other than weight, height, you can also carry out or measure the head circumference of the child, chest circumference of the child. We have already discussed how to measure head circumference, chest circumference in your theory classes if you remember. The next factor is the age independent factor. Now, age independent factor meaning this will not change with regards to age. For example, height, arm circumference, weight for height, skin fold thickness, and mid upper arm or height ratios. Now see, wherever whatever we are talking about over here are ratios and not direct anthropometric measurements. So ratios are independent of your age. That is, they will not change even if age is changing. Now why are these ratios constant? Because if for example if you consider weight for height, if weight is changing, height will also change with respect to your weight, or rather as a child grows, if height is increasing, weight will also increase to a certain extent. So your ratio will be quite constant. So it is a age independent factor. Now we move on to our main topic, that is determination of weight. So measurement of weight is one of the most reliable criteria for assessment of health and nutritional status in children. Why is it reliable? Because the weight will provide you direct information about the nutritional status. If the child's weight, for example, if the infant's weight from 0 to 6 years is less than 3 kgs, then you can simply say if the child is not getting proper amount of nutrients, or there is lack of lactation or food supply in the child as such. So from all these parameters you can directly associate the weight with the nutritional status. So again, this weight measuring is quite easy. We all have been to doctors, and these doctors or clinicians can use different type of weighing balance to basically measure your weight. Now depending on the age, the weighing balance may change. You can have a beam type weighing balance, you can have a electronic weighing scale for infants and children, you can also have a bathroom type mechanical weighing scale. Though this is very unreliable when we are talking with respect to children, because as you know, the child cannot stand straight on these bathroom weighing scales or the scales which we usually use in our clinicians. So or otherwise you can have a Salter type of spring machine, which is very common in Adivasi or rural, or you can say field conditions. If you are going to conduct a survey in a distant or a hilly area, remote area which is not accessible, you cannot carry your weighing scale there or your electronic weighing scale as you can see in the first picture. Then what you can do, you can basically use a Salter type of weighing scale. So this is again an image of Salter type of weighing scale. It is basically like a bean type of weighing scale where the clock basically indicates the weight of the child, and the child is made to sit in the position as you can see in the diagram. Now with regards to weight, we need to know about the growth velocity as well. So the periodic recording of weight on growth chart is very essential for monitoring the growth of the child under 5 years of age. See, we are directly associating weight with growth. So we have to basically consider if weight is increasing, then how much growth is basically seen in that child. So for 0 to 4th month, if the growth velocity is 1 kg per month, meaning the weight of the child is increasing 30 grams per day. Again, for 5 to 8 months, the growth velocity should be around 0.75 kgs per month, so that around 20 grams of weight is increasing per day. Now this growth is very important, because if the child is not growing in the initial days, then it will hamper the development of child in the later stages of life. Then for 9 to 12 months of infant, the growth velocity is decreased, that is the growth becomes a little slow, that is it is 0.5 kgs per month, that is approximately growth velocity is 15 grams per day. Then in children up to 1 to 3 years, the growth velocity will increase. Now it will be around 2.25 kgs per year. Then from 4 to 9 years, again the growth velocity is going to be of the similar range, that is 2 to 75 kgs per year. Then again in the teenage, the growth velocity changes to a very great extent. It goes from 5 kgs to 6 kgs per year, depending on whether you are a girl or a boy. Initially, girls' weight basically increase. Young girls' weights basically increase in the earlier period, that is from 10 to 15, and boys basically tend to increase their weight in you can say from 14 to 18 years, right? And the great growth velocity in this case is going to be 0.5 kgs per month. So depending on this, there was classification of malnutrition which was given by the Indian Academy of Pediatrics. Basically they gave this chart for weight for age. So if the weight for age is greater than 80%, then you can say the child is normal and is not suffering from malnutrition. Whereas if the weight has decreased by 71 to 80%, then you can say the child is having grade 1 or a mild type of malnutrition. If the weight is very less, that is there is 61 to 70% reduction in weight, then the child is suffering from moderate type of malnutrition. If the weight reduction is weight for age reduction in weight is mainly 51 to 60%, then it is grade 3 or very severe type of malnutrition. And if the weight is less than 50%, then the child is suffering from very chronic or severe grade 4 malnutrition as such. So this is all about your weight determination. We move on to our second topic, that is height determination, where we will be mainly talking about determination of height, also called as the length determination. Again, when we are talking about height determination, what is the change in velocity? We will also be talking about that. So length, height or stature determination is again directly related with growth of a particular child. So usually up to 2 years of age, recumbent length is measured. Recumbent as in you are laying the child on the ground, or you can say if you can see in this diagram, to your lower left hand corner you can see a infantometer. Using this infantometer, the length of the child is measured. Whereas in older children above 2 years of age, because they can stand, their standing height or stature is recorded. Now, it is very convenient to basically use a inbuilt stadiometer, which is affixed to a wall, as you can see in this image, which will provide you direct readings with a very good accuracy. I think all of you must have tried this in hospitals as such, and the accuracy is very good, that is plus minus 0.1 centimeters as such. Important factor here is the use of recumbent length for measurement of height or stature in children below 2 years of age using an infantometer. Height, you can say height or stature will be reduced if there is nutritional deprivation over a period of time, and this will directly or indirectly affect the growth or the height. Height you can also term height as linear growth of a child. So what is the technique to measure length of the child in the infantometer? So what is done in this case is the infant is placed supine in the infantometer. An assistant of the mother is basically asked to keep the vertex, or you can say the top of the head, snugly touching the fixed vertical flank. The legs are fully extended. Now this is done by pressing the knee. So the child's knee basically the bones of these infants are not very strong at that point, and they do not bend very easily. So you press the knees and the feet are kept vertical at 90 degrees angle. and they are adjusted with the help of a movable pedal plank of the infantometer. Now this plank is basically adjusted against the sole of the child and the length is measured at the scale. See, this is what is done. The child's head, basically the child is first laid on the infantometer with the help of the mother or an assistant. The assistant is also on her knees. Then what is done? The head is kept at a constant position. If you can see with the help of the head plank. Then after that, the knees are being pressed and the child is being laid flat on the ground. And the ninth number diagram, ninth position in the diagram, if you see, what are they doing? They are pressing the soles against the movable plank in such a way that there is an angle of 90 degree with the infantometer and the child. So in this way you can very easily measure the recumbent length in young children. Then in older children who can stand, height can be measured by a rod attached to a lever type of machinery. Now this rod attached to a lever type of machinery is known as a standiometer. The child should stand basically bare feet, not wearing any shoes, flat against the ground or a wall where this particular standiometer is fixed. Now against the wall where this standiometer is fixed, and you should make sure that the heels, buttocks, shoulder, occiput are all of the child are all touching the wall so that accurate measurement of height can be taken place. Then the head is kept straight, and wherever the head is there, you are basically moving the plank or wooden spatula, or you can have a ruler as well. And the topmost point of the vertex is basically identified on the wall. So like you can see, the child is made to stand barefoot where the scale is attached. From there, the child is basically made to stick, or you can say stand very close to the wall so that the heels, buttocks, head are attached, or you can say come in close contact with the wall. And then you can see the headpiece is basically moving, so the doctor will move the headpiece and you can basically measure the height wherever the headpiece or the topmost part of the head ends. So this is all about your measurement of height. When we talk about height velocity, you have to also consider the age. So we'll be talking about age and approximate rate of increase in stature. So from birth to 3 months, the height increase is about 3.5 centimeters every month. From 3 to 6 months, the height increase is usually 2 centimeters per month. From 6 to 9 months, it is 1.5 centimeters per month. From 9 to 12, it is 1 to 3 centimeters per month. So if you see, there is a gradual trend, that is from birth to the age of 1 year, you can say, the height increases initially very quickly and the growth is slightly less in the following months. But from 2 to 5 years, again, there is a very fast increase because the child is growing, development is proper. If you are providing it with proper food, then the height increase will be approximately 6 to 8 centimeters per year. And then from 5 to 12 years, it is approximately 5 centimeters increase per year. Now, height velocity with respect to whatever height is present at birth is usually 50 centimeters. So, gain of height after birth is going to be about 25 centimeters in 1 year, and then gain during second years is approximately half of it, which is 12.5 centimeters in a year. Gain during the third year is usually ranging from 7.5 to 10 centimeters a year, and gain during 3 to 12 years is 5 to 12 centimeters per year. In adolescent kids or teenagers, 8 centimeters per year for girls during 12 to 16 years. So, what can we do from this is basically we can calculate the expected height of a child up to 12 years of age, and this formula was given by a scientist known as Veitch. That is why it's known as the Veitch formula. So length or height in centimeters is basically dependent on age, as it is an age dependent factor, and you can calculate it as age in years into 6 plus 77. Other than this, prediction of height in adults can also be carried out using parental height or Tanner's formula, or even in certain cases Winch's formula is also used. Though this was not great importance, because after a particular point, the height in adults does not change. Now we move on to our ratio calculation, that is the BMI determination. So in this part of the video, we will be mainly talking about how is your basal metabolic index determined, as well as what are the factors which are going to affect BMI. So whenever we are talking about BMI, the question is, what do you mean by BMI? So BMI is basically measure of body fat. Now this body fat is measured in relation to your height as well as your weight, right? So if you consider height and weight as age dependent factors, if you calculate a ratio of height and weight, it will basically talk about direct indicator or direct measurement of the person's total body fat. As the BMI score increases, you can say the fat proportion or the fat percentage also increases. So how are you going to calculate BMI? It is very easy. There is a direct formula for calculating a BMI. Your BMI is basically calculated using weight divided by height square, in which weight is measured in kilograms and height is measured in meters. We will consider a very small example or a very simple example for calculating BMI. For example, an adult is having a height of 180 centimeters and the weight is 75 kgs. सबसे पहले what we have to do is, or the first step is to convert the height in centimeters into meters. So as you all know, for conversion, we have to multiply this by 100 because the difference from meters to centimeters is of 100 centimeters. So your weight, your weight will be the same, whereas your height will be 1.8 meters, right? So the BMI formula is weight in kgs divided by height square. So for calculating square, we are going to multiply 1.8 into 1.8, which gives us a value of 3.24. Then we will divide 75, which is the weight, by 3.24, which gives us a BMI of 23.15. Now we have got a figure. Now the next question is, from this 23.15, how do I know, or what should be the conclusion which should be drawn, right? So for that, WHO or the World Health Organization has given a classification. So if your weight ranges from, or your weight status or your body mass index is basically less than 18.5, then you are undernourished or come into the category of undernourishment. Normal range for weight is 18.5 to 24.9. Whenever we are talking about overweight stature, the BMI range is going to be from 25.9 to 29.9. Now, obese category is again divided into 4 different classes depending upon how much the BMI is going. So, mainly anything above 30 is given the category of equal to 30 or above 30 is basically coming under the category of obese. Again, this obesity is divided into 3 classes, class 1, class 2 and class 3. So, class 1 basically ranges from 30 to 34.9. Obese 2 basically ranges from 35 to 39.9. And class 3 is extremely obese, which is equal to or greater than 40. Now, we will again see an example of calculating your BMI. So, in this case, your height is given in feet, which is 6.6 feet. So, you have to convert this into meters. After converting into meters, the value of height is going to be 1.98 meters. The weight is given in lbs or pounds. In lbs, it is given as 260 lbs. You have to convert it into kgs. So, the weight in kgs is going to be 118 kgs, right? So, for this, what you have to do is you have to calculate the BMI. In this case, BMI is going to be weight, which is 118 kgs divided by 1.98 meter square, right? So 1.98 square will be 3.92 and 118 divided by 3.92 gives you a BMI of 30.10. Now 30.10 will basically fall into the range of class 1 obese, as the body mass index according to this range is coming under 30 to 34.9. So in this way, BMI values are going to help us. Now, we move on to the different factors affecting your BMI. There are 4 different factors which can affect the body mass index calculation. First one is the genetic factor. Second one is the lifestyle factors. Third one is the physiological factors. And the fourth one is the economic factors. So whenever we are talking about, we'll talk about these factors one by one. First is the genetic factors. See, in many cases or many studies have basically identified that the body weight is controlled by genes. So even if you are trying to reduce your weight, your body genetics is such that you are not being able to reduce your weight to a great extent. Now, mainly in certain cases or certain metabolic disorders, there can be defects in genes. We will be talking about a simple example where a defect in gene synthesizes leptin, which is a very crucial hormone, you can say. This hormonal substance basically produced by fat and released into the bloodstream, and this leptin then goes, once it enters into the bloodstream, it goes and acts on the hypothalamus. Now, hypothalamus basically is an part of the brain which is going to regulate your body weight as such. So in this way, what is happening is, even if you are trying at a very great extent to reduce weight because of defective genes, what is happening, you are not able to regulate or control your body weight. Other than this, congenital absence, that is from birth, if there is absence of leptin, it produces, if leptin is not produced in proper amounts, then what will happen? The child will be continuously feeling very hungry, and there is a marked obesity in young children as such. The second genetic defect which is observed in the body in response is the signal leptin provides. So this signal basically determines how much one eats, how much energy one expends, and ultimately what is the body weight. We move on to your physiological factors. So basically studies have shown that if an obese person is present, then they are 25% times more likely to experience mood disorders. That is, they may suffer from depression as compared to those people who are not obese, because eating or consuming too much food may lead to certain physiological effects on your cognitive organs as well. So many obese people try to eat more in response to negative emotions. Now these negative emotions can be boredom, sadness, anger. This is called basically as stress eating nowadays. So even if you are having this eating, basically helps them control their emotions such as fear, sadness, or in some cases worry. If the child is worried also, then this particular factor may play an important role. Other than this, lifestyle factors are a major cause of obesity in children, or the factors which are going to affect the BMI. So in today's world, basically level of physical activity is going to affect the BMI. Mainly sedentary lifestyle can lead to obesity. So basically, even if you are leading a sedentary lifestyle, you need to exercise for at least 45 minutes a day to avoid such physical factors or lifestyle factors associated with BMI changes. Second factor which is very important is your dietary habits. So large consumption of food which is very high in sugar, main or fat. We are mainly talking about processed food here. Basically will increase the likelihood of weight gain, and because of this weight gain, consequently total energy intake will increase. For example, if children are consuming too many chocolates per day, what will happen? Initially you are just providing the body with a stimulus. Okay, this is the normal amount of energy which is being provided for me. And if you stop giving them chocolates, what will happen? Their dietary habits may cause problems, and they get hunger pangs or mood swings associated with consumption of such high amount of sugar, which will ultimately lead to a very, you can say, bad kind of dietary habit. Sleeping hours again play a very important role. Nowadays, insomnia or lack of sleep can cause or lack of sleep is very common, not only in children but in adults also, and it can cause hormonal imbalances. These hormonal imbalances will lead to lack of appetite in young adults, or they may crave for foods which is very high in calorie or carbohydrates during the night time. So this can also lead to chances of increased obesity. The last factor which we need to consider is the economical factors. Now, economical constraint obviously contribute to unhealthy food choices. So in this case, we are mainly talking about those people who belong to a very low socio-economic group, or people who live below the poverty line. Now they tend to buy products which are cheaper to reduce their food budget. But due to this, what are they doing? They are compromising on the quality of the food as well as the quantity of the food. Now they are maintaining diets similar to the average population of the diet, but the quality is low, due to which they are not supplied with proper nutrients. And so the proportion of energy by meat, dairy products, vegetables, fruits, whatever they are being consumed is decreased. But the proportion of sweets, added fats can lead to obesity if these things are being consumed. So this was all about our today's practical. we'll have a quick summary of the same. Firstly, we talked about determination of weight. Firstly, we talked about anthropometry, which is the determination of parameters which are inexpensive and reliable and directly related to nutritional status of a person. First, we talked about weight determination in children, where you can use electrical measurement scale, infantometer, or you can use a stadiometer to determine weight. In case of height determination, you can use a stadiometer again. Then we talked about BMI calculation, which is a ratio of weight in kgs divided by height in squares meters. This BMI ratio will basically talk about the nutritional status of the child at that time or person at that time being either undernourished, normal or obese, or you can even say overnourished asset. So you have to attempt an assignment for the same. The assignment has two questions. First is explain how is height determined, and second question is how is weight determined. You can answer these questions and scan them and upload them on your Google Classroom, or you can email it to me on the email address provided to you. So in our next practical, today we talked about age dependent factors. In our next practical, we will be mainly talking about how to prepare a growth chart. How is this growth chart going to be different in cases of girls and boys? And in your next practical, we will be talking about simple recipes which can be included in the diet of your children, so that their you can say in these children the instances of your malnutrition or protein energy malnutrition is reduced. So this is it from my side. Thank you so much. Have a good day.